I don't know. I kind of want to do a funny intro, but at the same time, I don't, because this is like another. I mean, the article is literally titled Bungie devs say atmosphere is soul crushing amid layoffs, cuts, and fear of total Sony takeover. So I think I'll save the comedy for another time. I have not read this article at all. Let me see just how long it is. Okay, not as long as I thought it was going to be. This appears to be a follow-up. We're about 1 month after the layoffs and a lot of the news that has come out from Bungie. So I'm just going to be reading through it. We're going to react to it. I mean, the title of the video is literally just going to be like, I'm reacting to this article. So here we go. 1 month after a major round of layoffs impacted 100 Bungie employees of 1,200, those remaining at the Destiny developer say the cuts, as well as other cost-cutting measures, came alongside an apparent scramble by the studio leadership to avoid a total Sony takeover. Jesus. Let's see here. While the exact details of Sony's deal to acquire Bungie remain unknown to the public or employees, they were told by leaders that current split board structure is contingent on Bungie meeting certain financial goals. If Bungie falls short of those thresholds, Sony is allowed to dissolve the existing board and take full control of the company. Implemented numerous other cost-cutting measures, hiring freeze, reduced travel budgets, elimination of holiday bonuses, keeping its annual Bungie Day virtual. Resulted in a massive decay in morale within the company, according to IGN sources, one of whom told us that the mood within the studio has been soul-crushing over the past month, and it doesn't sound like management is making any significant efforts towards improving the atmosphere either. Holly Barbacovi outright stating that layoffs were a lever that the company would pull again. Discouraged from even discussing the layoffs whenever they tried to ask questions, employees in one department were called post-layoff Q&A session where department head asked if leadership taking salary cuts to prevent layoffs had been considered, only to respond that Bungie was not that type of company. It really shouldn't surprise me at all, but like literally one of the first things that happened when the new season launched is Bungie, probably some like completely out of touch executive being like, what if we sold them a bunch of stuff for money? As just like a dumb way to try to recoup some amount of money. Just like completely out of touch. Sources we spoke to pointed out that many of the Bungie employees who were laid off were beloved community leaders within the studio, including many who had spearheaded employee inclusion and support efforts. So I'm angry. I'm upset. This isn't what I came here to do. It feels like many higher-ups aren't listening to the data and are like, we need to win our fans back. They still like us. No, they don't. We got rid of some of our most knowledgeable, beloved folks who have been here 20-plus years. Every day I walk in, I'm afraid that I or my friends are next. No one is safe. It feels like many higher-ups aren't listening to the data and are like, we just need to win our fans back. They still like us. I mean, this part, yes. I don't know anyone who is a fan of Destiny leadership at this point, like executive leadership, after the, like especially after the starter pack thing. You introduce that, you haven't learned anything. You've learned absolutely nothing. Make me an executive. Because if that's the kind of bonehead decision-making and thought process you need to go through to become an executive, I'll be the best executive you've ever seen. We just need to win our fans back. What are you doing about it? Clearly, like we need to win our fans back. Let's sell them $15 worth of materials for starter things. Just zero grip on reality. Absolutely zero grip on reality. Another anxiety sources discussed with us that many of the reductions made at Bungie were recently a part of a broader move towards outsourcing. Great! In the wake of acquisition that shocked many Bungie employees we spoke to, and which seemed out of character with the students' independent streak, it feels to many like that's all falling apart. Beloved colleagues have been laid off, benefits are vanishing, and many feel the more people-oriented culture of recent years is being torn to pieces by the very Bungie leaders that touted it for so long. And seemingly all of those same leaders can retain a vestige of control over a company that's already been sold away anyway. Folks still feel like there's very much an us versus them feeling between leadership and workers. That trust has been eroded. I mean, it's just like, what is it gonna take? You know, I think that's really the main thing. Is just like, what is it going to take for people to realize, like, hey, after Final Shape, it's dire. It's really, really, really dire for this game. And apparently the company. I feel like they're almost, betting on Marathon being a hit and hopefully, restoring some amount of even financial stability to the company. And after something like the starter pack thing, it's like, how does anyone have any sort of faith at all in Bungie leadership to navigate the next few months, right? The people actually working on the game, obviously no one has a problem with them, but like after years and years of just leadership this, leadership that, when do you take the hint that something is up and something needs to change? When does that happen? And then it's like, what happens if Sony takes over? They start breaking down parts of the company. And then what happens after Final Shape, right? Who says like there aren't employees at Bungie who are just like, I'm finishing Final Shape and then I'm out. So now you have leadership. That's a huge problem with employees being demoralized. Some of them probably just want to see it through, and then they might be looking for new jobs. Not to mention, you're losing the trust of the community, which means less people are playing the game, which means fewer people are spending money on the game. So all of these things are just going to continue to degrade the foundation of the company and the game itself. And when do you take the hint? When do you actually respond to this as a leader? People have been complaining about leadership for years. I've seen this kind of feedback going back 5, 6, 7 years ago from occasional Glassdoor reviews and stuff like that. I'm not going to say, there's not been some disgruntled employees in the past. But when this is like so consistent with the feedback that I've seen and heard just over the years from just like anonymous this, anonymous that, article here, article there, when does it penetrate that you're maybe like, maybe I'm the problem? When does something change? Because clearly, I mean, nothing changed in the short term, right? Again, I hate to keep referencing the damn starter pack, but like if you're going through all of this and your employees are like, dude, what the F are you guys doing? What the hell is going on? Why is nothing changing? You hear this for like years and years, and then you go through a wave of layoffs, and for like a month, everyone's miserable, and then you're like, starter pack. You're brain dead. Like, where do you even go from there? Literally the dumbest decision making I've ever heard of. And like, yeah, I'm sure there's like some things about being a leader at Bungie that is completely lost on the peons like us, but literally anyone could have told them, hey, we're thinking about putting out this starter pack that's going to cost $15 to give new players a boost. Do you think that's a good idea after literally everything that just happened? 100% of people would have told you, no, that's a stupid idea. Literally the dumbest thing you could possibly do right now, because your approval ratings, they're in the gutter, and doing that is not going to help. And also all the conspiracies of like, oh, they put out the thing so that they could remove it later or make it free later to build goodwill. Baloney. They only took it down because people got pissed. I know this is all corporate America. I'm not saying like all of corporate America is immune to this, but this is just something specific to us. It's just like, what else? What other feedback can you give anymore? Because again, I want to support the employees, but how? Like when leadership and executives just continue to not get the effing hint, what can you do? I want to support the game because I want to support the employees, but I don't want to support the game because the execs and the leadership are constant negative forces. So what do you do? Tell Bungie leadership to resign. That's the hint. Yeah, Bungie leadership, resign. You think they're going to listen now? Years and years and years of this feedback. Starter pack. Immediately after all this crap. Clearly they don't care. Was I consulted about the starter pack? No, absolutely not. I mean, I could have told them. Straight up. If I would love to be a consultant inside those doors. Hey, we're thinking about a starter pack. You think this would be a good idea? Not for $15. Yeah, they're not taking salary cuts. It's almost like they're not even claiming responsibility. Wasn't a dungeon key like $15 too? I think there's a big difference between the dungeon pass and a thing designed for new players. At this point, what feedback could possibly be given to anyone in a position of power that's actually going to sink in? Everyone's saying Sony let Sony take over is just wrong. It's only going to get worse with a mega corp at the reins. I mean, if Sony completely takes over, who knows what they end up doing to it? Losing money on their game is usually feedback enough. Clearly, it's not working. I mean, this is the first time that I feel like we've heard any sort of like Bungie is like losing money. They're in the negative, or I don't know their financials, but like things are not good. Every other time it's just been like, yeah, things are not good, but there's not mass layoffs or blah, 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 blah. Now that like this crack has been shown in the concrete and water is rushing in, who knows? If they did lessen, what is the one thing you would say to them? I don't know, start listening to your employees about their issues, about their concerns, because it seems like they're not. It seems like they're not listening to them at all. Just from all the things that I'm reading. Obviously, we don't know what's going on inside the studio. We have no idea. But after years and years of feedback of like, leadership's bad, they're not doing this, they don't listen to us, take the hint. Take the effing hint. What's it going to take? The whole company need to go under before you take the hint? Sell Goodwill pack for $15. And I think part of why Destiny continues to be, relatively solid is because you have all those things in-house. Most people feel like they're on the same page. Although I've even heard feedback that like certain teams are not even talking to each other when they're designing things. Now imagine like 3 different studios piecemealing a bunch of things together, like ref and Call of Duty. Like you already have some communication issues, and now you're gonna outsource to a bunch of different companies. Like, I don't know, have fun. What direction could Bungie take with Destiny to build to repair goodwill with the community at this point? Well, for starters, stop making it so we see articles like this every month. This should not be coming out regularly anymore. This doesn't build any goodwill. That's a good start. I honestly think they've had a decent start, because despite laying off a bunch of the community team, that Destiny 2 team Twitter has been yapping nonstop since the start of the season. That's actually a good move. They've been very communicative, despite laying off a bunch of their community team. How the hell does that work? I don't think anything's going to change with this season, really. I mean, I think the things that we've gotten so far, seasonal activity's been good, but like, people are done with the seasonal model. That we want to move on to like this episodic format to see what's going on. Ultimately, what's going to drive people to the game is how fun the game is, or how excited people are about playing the game in the first place. So content tends to be the number one thing. Is a thing fun to play? Is a thing fun to engage with? Am I having a good time? Do I feel like I'm enjoying myself? Ultimately, that's what matters at the end of the day. So how are you going to keep people entertained in Final Shape? How are you going to keep them entertained after Final Shape? Wouldn't that justify the community team's firing? I don't know where all this extra communications is coming from. We had a bunch of people laid off from the community team, and now that Destiny 2 team Twitter is talking way more. I don't know where that came from. Why was this not here the whole time? Free weekends or weeks would assist getting new players into the game. I think making a lot of this older content free would be a good start. Lon on Twitter said, it's been damage control PR campaign. All that's being undone by this, and I'm not blaming the person making this. I'm blaming for the situation happening that this needed to be written. I'm blaming stuff like starter pack. I'm blaming stuff like constant negative feedback on leadership. It doesn't matter how much internally you want to talk to the players of the game at this point, when you're never going to pull in new people. Like, pulling in new people is so much harder, because every single time there's some kind of negative thing, people love to shit on Destiny. Let me tell you. And as a creator for it, I am constantly embarrassed. And so it doesn't matter that how communicative the Destiny 2 team Twitter account is. When stuff like this is showing up, when starter pack feedback is showing up, because if you want the game to survive, at this point, you need to bring in new people, or you really need to entice the people that are currently playing. What's Steam charts looking like right now? 56,000. 24-hour peak of 71. On the first, we hit 100,000 for the first time in a minute. I guess basically since the last season. 56,000 playing 32 minutes ago. Our company has a policy about decisions we make. We ask ourselves, what's the worst news headline that we could read about this, and it actually helps us sometime avoid bad choices. Yeah, if only Bungie took that feedback to heart. Your answer is Sony. Bungie is not independent anymore. I'm not at the point where I'm blaming Sony for constant negative feedback about leadership. Because this negative feedback, I've seen this negative feedback for years before they were owned by Sony. Are we at COO levels of doom? I almost feel like it's worse. Because at least with like Curse of Osiris, the game Destiny 2 was still in its infancy, and a lot of those issues can be designed out of, right? And they did. They literally designed themselves out of Curse of Osiris. A lot of those were gameplay design issues, right? You cannot design yourself out of leadership problems. That is a systemic issue within the company. There's a difference between the game not being that good and there being like internal problems at the studio for the people who are making the damn game. What I'm trying to say is Sony can now lay off the management leadership. Guess we'll find out. If Bungie leadership is so brain dead, let Sony take over gut leadership and it might get better. We don't know what Sony would do because Sony's probably looking at the bottom line most of all. They don't have, Sony probably doesn't have the same level of investment in the franchise as Bungie does. So you let Sony completely take over? Sure, they could gut leadership. It depends on how they feel about the franchise, if they feel like there's anything left. Or they could just be like, all right, wipe it, go to orbit. We don't know what they're going to do. They could be even worse for all we know. Do you think we'd be here now if the game never went free to play, or would be in a worse situation? I don't think anyone really considers Destiny free to play. Any actual player of Destiny is paying for stuff. Destiny 2 is free to try. And there is some free stuff that you can play. Don't get me wrong. There's definitely some free stuff. But if you really actually want to enjoy the game, you need to buy stuff. So I don't really know how much I want to pin on Destiny being free to play as part of a problem. I don't know enough about that to give you an informed opinion on whether or not it's the problem. But on the very limited knowledge that I do have, I would say that is not the problem. The game itself is not in a state where people are stoked to be playing, even though, something like the dungeon, pretty good. Seasonal activity, pretty good. People are still tired. And Bungie, let me put this in context. People are still not really that excited. And Bungie just put out arguably the best dungeon that they've ever put out. A lot of people are putting it at the top of their lists. They've put out arguably one of the best seasonal activities since Menage. So they're still putting out some of their best stuff that they've put out, and people are still bro. And it's what do you even do at that point? What do you even do at that point where the employees are putting out some of the best stuff that they've ever come up with, and people are still all right, I'm partially stressed out as a creator. Bungie's putting out some of their best gameplay content, and I'm well, it's going to be a long 7 months. I know, basically, as soon as 2024 hits, I know... Problem with free-to-play is a bad new player experience as well as a confusing amount of DLCs needed to buy. That's fair. Glad said that Bungie dev years ago that said that the PS4 was the main reason for the DCV. It couldn't handle it anymore. I mean, I remember having some discussions about the DCV. Am I technically still under NDA for that? Probably. I just consider pretty much all of my conversations with Bungie as under NDA. I don't remember that specifically, though. I feel like I was given other reasons, but it would not surprise me if it was part of the reason. But I don't even still feel like I've gotten the whole of the DCV. What are your thoughts on if Sony really takes over? What should they do with Bungie? I don't know. Again, they could take it multiple ways. They could do it. They could do multiple ways, revamp things, and take it in a new direction. They could completely, shut some stuff down and be like, this isn't working, cut this. It's not a thing that I'm knowledgeable enough. The only thing I'm knowledgeable enough about, I feel like that I could say with some amount of confidence, is that seeing stuff like this is getting really tiring, and whatever needs to happen to stop this constantly from reaching my eyeballs needs to be adjusted. This is your main situation right now, right here. I don't really have any huge problems with the game itself. This is your problem right here. Is stuff like this part of why you plan to take a sabbatical? No. I plan to take a sabbatical because I'm tired. I've been doing this for almost 11 years straight. I've had two-week vacations, and I'm tired. Look, I'm not saying the new player experience is not part of the issue, but stuff like this potentially leads to those issues. It starts here. It starts from the top. Because if the top is making bad choices, that's going to lead to more bad choices being pushed along the way. If this cannot be resolved, all of those other things lower down also not going to get resolved. So it starts here. Yes, new player experience, not great. Yes, old content not being in the game, not great. Address this. I know this sucks for everyone. It must suck to be in Joe's position. Seems like he really cares. Yeah, I mean, I've chatted with him relatively recently. I know he does. I'm sure he's probably the most exhausted from all this. Joe seems stuck with the bad job as a fall guy here. I don't really even consider Joe as a fall guy. I don't feel like based on the information we know right now, right? For all we know, Joe in his spare time could be eating babies. But right now, everything that I've seen is just I don't consider him the fall guy. It seems like he wants to make a good game, and he's stuck in the middle. Exactly. He's got to be he's the face of the game right now, and so I'm sure he gets a lot of completely undeserved crap from a lot of people because he's the face. As far as a lot of people are concerned, he's the leadership, but I don't think potentially in this capacity. And everything that I know about Joe, everything that I have discussed with him, talked with him in person, nothing would indicate that he is a part of this based off of what I know of him. And I've been talking with him on and off for years now. Years. I talked with him, probably still back in Destiny 1 when he was on the raid team, and we're talking about Kingsfall years ago. Chatted for 30 minutes at one of the first conventions that I went to. It just confirms stuff that I feel like I already knew, but just in a much, much worse way. I don't know how much I really want to dwell on this too much more. Because I feel like I've kind of gotten the point across. You think Sony taking over is a good thing? I just don't know. I think it would just completely depend on how they took over, you know? Could they completely turn it around? Sure. Could they break down Bungie into a bunch of core components? They could also do that. It just depends on what they did or what they would do. Do you think it's possible for Sony to decide to take over because of Bungie's execs' horrible decisions? I feel like they would if that led to significant financial issues. There was something here that's Sony gets to take over. Yeah, if Bungie falls short of certain financial thresholds by too great an amount, Sony is allowed to dissolve the existing board and take full control of the company. So is it possible? Yes. If this happens, which right now kind of feels like it's trending towards that direction. I don't think Final Shape is a do or die situation anymore. I think it's going to come out, people are going to play it, and they're going to be done. That's it. I don't know how many new players they're really going to grab with the finale. It's like a Avengers Endgame. How many people are like, oh, I'm gonna watch this the last thing. I'm gonna get invested right now. Final Shape's not grabbing new people. It's trying to satisfy the people that are still here. And then even the episodes are still gonna do that. I don't even know if the episodes are gonna be a good jumping in point. What's the next jump in point for new players? How do you make that happen? How do you make a new jump in point happen? Where is that? When is that? D3, again, don't think D3 is happening. Don't think D3 is happening. Marathon doesn't count. Marathon's not Destiny. Final Shape is not going to save the franchise. Why is that? Because how are you going to pull in new people for the finale? You're really going to pull in new people with the finale? I guess maybe if you're just a pure gameplay enthusiast, sure. You might pull some people back who have played the franchise and then left, right? And I'm sure there's going to be a lot. They don't need to bring new players. They need to bring the old players that gave up playing. They need both. I don't think you can just survive on what you have right now. You need new people as well. Or you need to have things be so good that your current player base sticks around for forever. Game isn't that fun, to be fair. I still think the game is fun, but it's just... I don't think it's necessarily fun versus not fun. I think it's more just tired versus not tired. How do I feel about episodes? I don't know how to feel about them just yet because we don't have one. They can I don't really listen to talk anymore. Bungie can talk about whatever they want. I only care about how it turns out in game. That's what I care about. They can talk my ear off. NDA, private meetings, community summit, blah 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 blah. Don't care anymore. Let's talk when the thing's actually out and we know what we're experiencing and what are the differences? What are you doing to make episodes maybe more enticing than seasons? What are you doing to dispel some of that seasonal fatigue? That's what I care about. And again, even if I ask those questions and they answer those questions, I still don't care that much because I need to see how it's done in game. You say that to Bungie meetings that I don't care anymore. You can say that. My enthusiasm for a lot of these community summit based things has been going down over the years to the point where if I get invited to one, cool. Most of the time I just kind of sit there. And if I don't get invited, whatever. It's just like, that doesn't do anything for me anymore. You know, cake's already in the oven. It's mostly baked. You can't like rip it out and be like, oh, we forgot to add baking soda. Like, it's already in there. Also, feedback for Bungie. If you're going to do any more community summits, please split up the PvE and the PvP players. Because let me tell you, going into these summits and having PvPers ask about cone angle scalars and accuracy cones and all this stuff, I'm just like, I'm falling asleep, bro. Split the PvPers and the PvEers. We got different problems. We got different questions that we want to ask. Yeah, split the Gambit players as well. The three of them can have their own meeting. And I'm not saying, the plight of PvPers is, not relevant, because a lot of the feedback that I've seen from PvPers this first week of the season has not been the most spectacular. I'm not saying their problems are invalid. I'm saying that we have different problems, and trying to integrate the PvEers and the PvPers together into one problem-solving situation is just split us up. You know what I mean? Just split us up. All right, if you watch this whole thing on YouTube, thanks for watching. We're gonna wrap it up here.